of July can be a great time to create family memories, but before you head out for your weekend, it's the perfect time to talk to your kids about safety and responsibility. We all hear about scary things happening over the holiday every year, so why not sit your family down before you head out the door? With us today is Carrie Little from Family and Children's Services. So where do we start as parents getting into this? Because you could think how scary things could be.
Yeah.
So where do we start?
So you don't want to go overboard with bombarding your kids with, oh, you know, the worst case scenario, worst case scenario. But you also don't want to be blasé about it and say kids are going to be kids. You want to be able to train your child up to be a sensible and responsible adult. And so especially for this time of year, there's different things you can do for different ages of kids.
Okay, well, let's start little.
Okay. So for little ones, you're going to want to talk about making sure, tell mom and dad where you're going to be, especially if you're going to be at a big like barbecue or picnic. There's going to be lots of kids running around and lots of activity. And I know like in Yukon where I'm from, the backyard's open into parks and kids are just running in and out. So just making sure you're having your little kid check in with you a lot. Every 10 minutes or so, be searching for them. Where are they? What's going on? And train them to talk with you. For middle school kids, like preteens, you're going to kind of want to do the same thing, but give them a little bit more freedom with that. But you're going to want to talk to them about making sure that they're aware of their surroundings with people as well as with signage. So make sure that they're noticing signs like no swimming, no jumping from this, no climbing, all those kinds of things. Make sure that you have your kid's head on a swivel. That's what my husband would say. Make sure your head is on a swivel.
I love it, but you don't want to scare them.
You don't want to scare them, but you just want to say, you know, make sure you're aware of your surroundings. And if you're worried about something, come back to us and ask, but make sure you know what's going on around you.
I love this. Before we move on to teens, with preteens, mine go, I'm fine, Dad, I'm fine, stop it. You know, what do you say to that? Like, I know you're fine, but we just have to have this because it's going to be a big thing.
I appreciate that you're fine. Now let's have a conversation about how fine you are. So then you can do a little bit of role playing with them.
I'm fine. I want to go play. Sorry.
So that's a good point too, Casey, in that you're not going to want to do it right before they're going to want to go out the door. You're going to give it a little bit of space. So maybe right now you're talking about what's going to happen on Saturday.
Oh, I like that.
As opposed to Saturday right before you go out when they're like, I'm fine, I got to go out and meeting.
Like, listen. Right.
They're not going to listen. So plan ahead a little bit.
Okay, now teens, speaking of not listening, what about teens?
Teens, you're going to want to be very specific about, and with preteens and with little ones too, talk about fireworks for sure. Talk about fireworks safety. Again, do that beforehand. With teens, also talk about drinking and driving. And talk with them all the time about role playing. You know, what do you do? If you're worried about driving home, you can always call me or you can call a friend's mom. Let's role play about that. But also role play with them about what they do if they see another driver on the road that they're concerned about. Should they pull over? What should they do in that scenario as well? Because drinking and driving always is, unfortunately, for every holiday, something to watch out for.
Yeah, and it's a reality. Now, what about the old standard when they get in trouble? What if they don't do it right, or they don't do? And what about that thing of wait until your father gets home? We try to avoid that in our house.
I hope you do, because you don't want to make the dad the heavy in every situation. You don't want to make dad the only disciplinarian in the house. You want to have a team effort when it comes to discipline. And when it comes to discipline, you're going to want to make something specific to the occurrence that happens that needs that consequence, and you're also going to want to make it time limited. So you're not going to say something like, if they do something with fireworks, well then you can't do fireworks next year, because you're probably going to forget that. So make it be, if they miss curfew perhaps, well then your curfew is going to be pushed back an hour for the next 2 weeks, or you don't get to go out next week. Make it time limited.
Make it a good consequence. So find out more on Family and Children's Services at fcsok.org. You can also call, right?
Right, you can.
Call 918-587-9471.